Welcome to the MIT Leadership Center video series. It is my great pleasure today to introduce Eileen Fisher, the founder and Chief Creative Officer of Eileen Fisher. Welcome. Part of what we teach at the MIT Leadership Center is the notion of a leadership signature. Basically, it's what makes you the unique leader that you are. Mm-hmm. So if you could provide us with just some words or phrases or stories that give us a sense of who you are as a leader.
I think the first thing I would say is that I'm a listener. And so I always start by listening rather than directing or leading or presenting my plan or direction or vision or anything. Although I do think of myself as a visioning person or a visionary in some ways. But actually, I think being a listener and a collaborator are and I'm very inclusive in the way I work. I like to work in groups and in teams, and I'm also intuitive. I work through kind of feeling my way. So it's a clothing business, so it started by like feeling fabrics and how fabrics feel, but it's also about how I feel and how people feel, or how people energetically are responding to things. That always intrigues me.
So I guess the next question is, how did you become this kind of leader?
I think a few things. One is that I am from a big family, and so just the idea of living in a big family, it always just feels right to be in the group and listening and connecting and hanging out, and so that's what feels right to me. So. Sometimes to a fault I'm recreating that, but there's a lot of good in it and a lot that has really, served me and served the company. And so then the other thing I would say is almost a kind of against what I saw, like, working in restaurants when I was in college and growing up, and just watching the way people led, and it made me feel uncomfortable, this sort of power over hierarchical kind of, people making demands and feeling a little oppressed maybe. I like to create that kind of sense, that engagement and sense that we're really all in this together, and, that working together rather than, I'm sort of powering over people or directing things in that way.
So there was the role model that you have from your family,
right.
But also these events where you saw very commanding control, almost
right.
coercive kind of environment.
Right.
And you said to yourself, I can do something different?
Yes, I think so. When I started the business, I knew I didn't want it to be that way. I wanted to do something different. Yeah. And the same as with the clothes, really not being a fashion designer really by trade or training. I saw a different kind of picture. So it was, in a way, like you were saying, following my own. I didn't think of it as a signature, but I guess that's what it is,
So there's a kind of internal compass that you have that somehow is helpful in guiding you along the way.
Yeah.
So you've been in this business for a while. You started
30 years.
30 years. 30 years is a long time.
Yeah.
And how would you say your leadership has shifted from the early days when you were a tiny startup to how you lead today?
I would say that it is more intentional. I have more awareness. I think a lot of what I did in the early days was just very spontaneous, or just very something natural to me, or just what made sense, some kind of common sense as I moved from day to day. And although that's still very much at play for me, I think that I've come to be more clear about what matters to me, how I think, what I care about. For example, the commitment to sustainability, or how I think certain teams should work, or how I think the money decisions should be made. And I'm in there in a slightly different way. I used to be more directing the design and coming really from just sort of, not just, but importantly so, from the creative center of the company. Now, and even though I always basically headed the business in some way, I always came from that sort of place. Now, although I see that as really key and still keep my fingers in those areas, I feel like I'm a little more intentional in, what what I want the business to become.
So it sounds you're back to that intentionality.
Yeah, for me it goes back again to collaboration and how to get everybody in the same boat rowing together, getting everybody engaged in all of the pieces. So that people are, creating clothes that are, good for people and good for the environment. And because I'm a collaborator, it takes me back to that, is I'm very interested in everyone trying to figure out what is their purpose and what are they passionate about and how do they contribute that. And so this is when you talk about what we wish and what is and how are we going to take baby steps to get everyone included in thinking about what is their purpose and how does that fit with where the company is trying to go now, since its mission has gotten so much larger.
So it sounds like part of what has happened to you more recently is that the journey, if you will, has gone inward.
Ooh, yeah.
That there's much more of a personal quest to figure out who you are and who the individuals in your company are, and how to link that to the larger,
exactly right.
vision.
That's exactly
How do you do that? How do you do that?
Well, we're on a mission to figure out how to do that, and we're in the process of setting up this learning center, learning lab, we're calling it, and part of the work we want to do there is what we're calling purpose work, to help individuals figure out what their purpose is. And every day, like I talk about this, I sit in my purpose chair in the morning. I talk about this, and it's kind of a strange thing. But it came out of an exercise out of a workshop that we did. So I ended up that I sit in this chair to kind of get the feeling of what matters to me today. And it's that inward thing that you're talking about.